Centuries ago, mysterious sea serpents and mermaids were believed to be hidden in the world's vast oceans. They've captured the human imagination for ages. But in Japan, scientists now think one of the alleged creatures may have been caught and preserved for generations. And they're taking X-rays to prove it. February 2nd, 2022. Scientists in Japan open a box said to contain a mythical creature captured by a fisherman in the Pacific Ocean in the 1700s. According to legend, the mummified body in this box was passed down from generation to generation until now. Inside the box is a bizarre mummy that measures 12 inches long and leaves scientists baffled. Using a CT scan, paleontologists are now looking into the 300-year-old mummy's origins. Researchers are also using DNA samples to identify which known species, if any, the creature is made of. Take another look at this oddity. It has hollowed-out eye sockets, pointy fang-like teeth, hands, and a fish-like tail complete with scales and a small flipper. What is this thing? Field researcher Ken Gerhard says Japan has a long tradition of merfolk, even though their folklore might be a bit different than what we're used to.
In Japanese culture, we have some very distinct types of mermaids. One in particular is known as the Ningyo. Unlike the beautiful, glamorous Western mermaid, the Ningyo is described as being hideous and, frankly, the stuff of otherworldly nightmares. It is usually depicted as being fish-like, but with varying degrees of humanoid features. The Ningyo is often described as having a monkey-like mouth full of razor-sharp teeth, like we're seeing here.
The Ningyo first appeared in ancient Japanese text 2,600 years ago, and it said that if one were to eat a Ningyo, you'd add centuries to your life.
There's one account of a woman who once ate a Ningyo and lived for 800 years. Still others conjecture that this creature could in fact be another type of Japanese mermaid known as the Amabie. Now, the Amabie is said to have long flowing hair and it's covered in scales. It is said that the Amabie first appeared in relation to a pandemic that happened centuries ago, and that this light or glow that was emitted from the Amabie was sort of taken to be a warning that this pandemic was coming. In the early part of 2020, when the worldwide pandemic hit, people in Japan began to sketch visions of the Amabie and post them online because looking at a picture of an Amabie is said to ward off disease. In other cultures, mermaids are said to possess 4 main powers: immortality, telepathy, hypnosis, and clairvoyance. For more clairvoyance on this mystery, we turn to our experts. First, Professor of Anatomy and Anthropology, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, dives into the Ningyo theory.
A Ninyigo is described as being the size of a seal and has a face like a monkey. So in those respects, this relic would seem to align with this identification. On the other hand, if you consume its flesh, you will be endowed with everlasting life. That then begs the question why someone would preserve the remains of such a creature as a relic as opposed to serving it up for dinner and reaping the benefits of that immortality.
Of course, maybe the person who found it didn't want to live for 800 years, or was saving it for someone who did. Remember, it was preserved in a box by priests like a kind of heirloom. Next, marine biologist Shay Conger considers whether this could be the Amabie.
The Amabie is said to have some sort of transformative powers, and one of these is that it's able to form legs to walk on the shore, and it's said to have 3 appendages. This creature doesn't seem to have anything like that. It actually seems to just have a tail or a fin.
Conger also points out that a mermaid with this body type would be unlikely to survive in the ocean.
Something like this would have a really difficult time thermal regulating. The fact that a mermaid has long limbs and arms and usually a head situated on its neck wouldn't be very advantageous. And that's because living in an aquatic environment sucks a lot of body heat away from you. Marine animals are actually fusiform in body shape, meaning that they are oval shaped. They don't have a defined neck. Seals and sea lions and whales have a lot of blubber around their shoulders and neck because it keeps their head and their central nervous system warm. So a creature that had a human head like this actually would be very cold.
So could this all be a hoax worthy of P.T. Barnum?
Some objects, like for example the Fiji mermaid, were determined to be a salmon taxidermied with some kind of a primate. And in some cases they were orangutans.
No evidence of sutures has been found, though a hidden stitch is commonly used in taxidermy for facial repair and in very short-haired areas, like the one we see here between the belly and the fin.
The fact that we don't necessarily know if this is a real animal or if it ever lived doesn't diminish the cultural importance of what we're looking at, because they directly reflect some really important nature-based religious aspects of Japanese culture.
Our verdict? Unexplained object. The paleontologist will soon release their results, and while Conger believes this is a hoax, until those DNA tests come back, we're going to say, we just don't know. 2017, the Mediterranean Sea. A team working a debris sweep along ocean pipelines comes across what, at first, looks like just another deep-sea carcass to be cleared away. But closer inspection reveals this is truly something unusual. What appears to be a 90-foot-long dusty spine sits undisturbed on the bottom of the ocean. A remote-controlled crane reaches out to investigate the skeleton, turning over one of the vertebrae, which disintegrates. British podcaster and investigator Debbie Hatswell was one of the first people to see this intriguing film after a member of the pipeline maintenance team reached out to her.
He said they've seen a lot of carcasses on the seafloor. And I've seen whale carcasses and all fish and all that, and it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with what they are. He's saying this is an anomaly. And he's felt that it was a very, very old animal of some kind. So I reached out to a number of marine biologists, and nobody really got back to me with it as to what it was.
Field researcher Ken Gerhardt explores the idea that perhaps these are the remains of a long-extinct ocean predator, the dreaded megalodon.
In 2022, the Atlantic Shark Institute out of Rhode Island was deploying sonar when they encountered what they believed to be a shark of unbelievable proportions, perhaps 50 to 60 feet in length. Now, if so, this would be the best account of a modern megalodon.
The megalodon, a nautical nightmare that experts believe could weigh as much as 50 tons, has been thought extinct for nearly 3 million years. Have these Rhode Island researchers uncovered a modern-day version of this historical monster? And if so, could we be looking at the remnants of one in this video?
This would certainly fit within the paradigm of what we know about megalodon.
Gerhardt also sees a connection between this discovery and the classic mythology of the region.
In Greek mythology, different sea monsters like Cetus, Charybdis, the Linnean Hydra were said to live throughout the Mediterranean Sea.
And while there are many suspects, there's one sea dragon sighting in particular that Gerhardt thinks could be connected.
In October 1907, fishermen on the island of Corsica claimed that they were terrorized by a horrible 200-foot sea dragon that actually ripped apart their nets. And the fishermen were so scared to go back out and fish that they actually called on the government to bring in a torpedo boat in order to kill the monster. And that just happens to be the location where we've got this footage of a 90-foot spinal column.
Sea dragons can be found in all sorts of ancient texts and tales dating back thousands of years. From Norse mythology's Midgard serpent to the ancient Babylonian saltwater dragon Tiamat, who many say was rebranded as the Leviathan in the Old Testament. Is there a connection here? Let's see if our experts can help slay this oceanic mystery. Marine biologist Dr. Shay Steingass strongly doubts these are the remains of a sea dragon of ancient myth.
It's been hypothesized that this might be a sea dragon. That's probably not the case because we really don't have any scientific evidence of these creatures existing.
Steingass also points to the fact that we can see what appears to be a pelvis, something not found in the numerous depictions of these serpent-like creatures.
What we're actually seeing here is a very old skeleton of some kind of modern animal.
But the only documented modern marine animal that could possibly grow to this length would be a whale. Could that be what this is?
I I would say the chances that this is a really large whale skeleton are really slim, because we would likely see other types of large bones, like a skull, if we were to see a spinal column. These remains aren't like anything I've really seen before.
With Dr. Steingass at a loss, we checked with wildlife biologist Stephanie Manka to see if this could be a modern megalodon like the one thought to be discovered near Rhode Island.
If it were a megalodon, I wouldn't expect to see the bone as intact as this. Megalodons, like other sharks, instead of bone skeletons, they have cartilage skeletons, which don't fossilize well. Bone contains minerals, whereas cartilage doesn't. Bones are much harder, and if you think about your ear, this part where it bends is the cartilage, and that's what shark skeletons are made of.
When cartilage breaks down, it turns into a jelly-like substance that dissolves into the water, which is why the only proof we have for megalodons are their teeth. And as for that alleged megalodon spotted by the Atlantic Shark Institute of Rhode Island, further research indicates this sonar image is more likely a large school of Atlantic mackerel. So with all of our theories ruled out, what is Manka's best guess?
I believe that this is a whale. What is probably going on here is the whale skeleton has been on the ocean floor for so long that organisms have eaten away at the bone. And there are fin whales in the Mediterranean, which are the second largest whale species. They usually don't get up to 30 meters, so there is a little size discrepancy, but everything else seems to allude that it is a whale.
Our verdict? Unknown sea beast. Stephanie Manka thinks it could be an abnormally large whale, but our marine biologist, Dr. Steingass, says no way. Until there is further investigation of the skeleton itself beyond this video evidence, these bones will remain a mystery. August 10th, 2019, in Tynemouth, United Kingdom, a small seaside town in northeast England. A local man enjoys a morning coffee on a pier overlooking the water when he spots this. We see a creature in the water, dark, skinny, and wiry, of indeterminate length. It lurks just beneath the surface in the shallows, hovering in place and almost submerged. But then it breaks the surface and reveals a long, smooth body. Its shape is reminiscent of a snake, and then it goes back under and disappears. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt helps make sense of what we just saw.
What's exciting is that I can't readily identify what type of animal this is. One intriguing possibility is that there could be a form of quote-unquote underwater alien. And this is borne by an ex-Ocean X researcher who does underwater exploration, who claims to have encountered alien-like creatures in the ocean that he described as hyper-advanced. But physiologically speaking, he said that they somewhat resembled stingrays or manta rays with wing-like appendages.
Next, Gerhardt wonders if this might be a saltwater cousin of a local freshwater legend.
Still others have hypothesized that this could be Bow Nessie, which is England's most famous aquatic denizen. Bow Nessie has been reported from Lake Windermere, the largest lake in England. It's described like a serpentine animal, but very large. Reports of Bow Nessie only date back to about 2010 or so, when it was first observed by a reporter. And since that time, there have only been about 10 sightings or accounts of Bow Nessie. But still, we have to recognize that there is a long history of lake monsters throughout the British Isles.
Bow Nessie, like its legendary cousin, the Loch Ness Monster, is thought by many to be a plesiosaurus, which were believed to live exclusively in the oceans. Until July 28, 2022, when an international team of researchers discovered plesiosaur fossils in ancient freshwater riverbeds in Morocco. So is it possible that a plesiosaur could be making its way from Lake Windermere to the ocean? In addition to aliens that resemble stingrays, underwater photographer Luis Lamar has described giant underwater spiders and poisoned deepwater sea snakes with bright yellow heads. Such figures are referred to as USOs, or unidentified submerged objects. Could this be one of the alien creatures from Lamar's accounts? Let's ask our experts. Wildlife biologist Stephanie Shuttler weighs the possibility that we're looking at one of Britain's famed water monsters.
People think that this is Bow Nessie or some type of lake monster by the way that it's moving. It seems to be going in and out of the water, and these things fit what a lake monster would look like.
But Shuttler's more skeptical.
I wouldn't say it's really characteristic of an animal. Usually animals move faster, especially at the end. They don't bob up and down like that. When the end parts of it come up and down, they look like 90-degree edges, and I can't think of any animal that fits that description.
Next, marine biologist Shay Conger discusses the possibility that this is a creature from another planet.
It's been conjectured based on some witnesses that this might be an extraterrestrial, but this to me looks like a really normal object. It's in pretty shallow water, so it doesn't seem like there's anything particularly mysterious about it. It does seem like it's moving pretty dynamically in the water, and that could either point to the fact that this is something that's alive, or it's just something that's really flexible and catching the incoming tide and currents as they come in. Based on the fact that this object is not really making any advanced or directed movements, I can pretty much rule out that this is some kind of alien or extraterrestrial creature.
But even though she doesn't believe this figure's an alien, Conger still thinks the evidence points towards something strange and unexpected.
It's not navigating its environment, it's just waving a lot. Hydrologically, if this were an animal, you would see something like a wake or disturbance at the surface. So because of that, I don't think this is a living, self-propelled item. I believe this is probably some sort of plastic or other type of debris that's being moved around in the water.
Conger points out that more than 10 million tons of plastic waste enter the oceans each year, and between the angular shape of the object, the lack of a wake, and its dark reflective nature, all signs point to this being a large piece of plastic floating in the current. The verdict? This is just some floating debris. We didn't spot Bow Nessie this time, but rest assured, we will keep a keen eye out for more sightings in Tynemouth. February 2022, it is a warm winter night off the coast of Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil. And a fisherman is cruising home after a long day on the water, but he soon notices he has some unexpected company. The boat speeds along, its motor creating a wake behind, when out from the water emerges a glowing yellow-eyed creature. The creature appears to be following the boat. Again and again, it jumps from the waters, revealing its piercing eyes before diving into the craft's wake. The pursuit is ominous. The fisherman even captures the video with a phrase that translates as, "It wanted to attack me." Take another look. This thing's glowing eyes are striking.
To see a 5, 6, 7, 8-foot long thing coming out of the water with glowing eyes. I wouldn't want to be on that boat.
Field researcher Cliff Barrickman says the creature could be a particular figure from Brazilian folklore, the Minhocão.
The Minhocão is reported to resemble a giant worm covered in black scales and 2 tentacles attached to its head. It's said to drag cows and horses into the water and drown them before it devours them.
Barrickman then wonders if it could be a documented yet equally peculiar species.
Another possible candidate is the Boto cor-de-rosa, or the Amazonian river dolphin.
Since these mammals are unique to this region, they've become fodder for local myth.
One of the stories is that they can change into a man, and they find the unattended females. They seduce them, and so when kids don't know their father, they say they're children of a river dolphin.
But if we set aside the supernatural angle, is it possible this is one of these rare dolphins? And if so, why is it seemingly hungry for humans? Brazil is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world, estimated to have about 4 million plant and animal species, about 20 times more than the United States. So it's easy to see why there are so many possible explanations for this creature. Let's see if our experts have any ideas. Biologist Floyd Hayes torpedoes the Minhocão theory because of speed.
The Minhocão allegedly has a worm-like or eel-like body, but this cannot be a Minhocão because eel-like creatures don't swim very fast.
Hayes estimates this creature could be swimming at 15 miles per hour, but eels max out at a measly 2.4 miles an hour. Electric eels can jump out of the water, but not in this undulating way. They only emerge from the waters to defend themselves against predators. They do not use this behavior as a means of hunting prey. Marine biologist Dr. Shay Conger considers the river dolphin theory.
Amazonian river dolphins are actually very light in color. They've been described as bubblegum pink. This animal is very dark and also doesn't have a beak like a dolphin, and I don't see anything like a dorsal fin. So this is not some kind of a dolphin.
Conger hits on another more feasible possibility.
One possible species is a leopard seal. Leopard seals are known to be very aggressive. They're top-tier predators that can swim at least 20 miles per hour, so it would easily be able to keep up with this little boat.
You think of seals as lovable, but leopard seals are apex predators. They eat penguins, even sharks. Keep in mind, they weigh more than many bears and have teeth designed to shred blubber and crush bones. In 2003, one even tragically killed a marine biologist. So is this a leopard seal on the hunt for humans? And what about those glowing eyes?
Leopard seals have the tapetum lucidum, like a deer. The reflective membrane in their eye, it maximizes the visible light because it reflects it into the front of the eye. So it's almost like a self-designed flashlight. Because seals spend time at depth in the ocean hunting prey, the better you can see in that type of environment, the more you can survive. So because of all of that, I think this is a leopard seal.
Dr. Conger had us convinced, but we couldn't resist sending the footage to our video forensic analyst, Michael Primo, and he had a surprise.
It's clear that this area of the image was different than the rest of the image, which is an indication that it was overlaid. There's also a difference in this shadow area. The eyes are essentially moving away from that region at some points. Like here is where we see the difference in the eyes. And if it was actually moving too fast for the camera to be able to interpret, I would expect to see some motion blur, but this is a doubling effect where those frames are essentially being produced twice, which is not an accurate depiction from that original camera. If this was genuine and was recorded in real life, the macro block motion vectors would indicate that. And thus the verdict is that this is fake.
Our verdict? This was a hoax. It's possible the video overlaid footage of a real leopard seal, so Dr. Conger's analysis might be spot on. But there's definitely some video shenanigans involved here.